News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users on demand on iTunes and on YouTube and on Blip TV and on my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you're encouraged to post your comments, whether you agree with yours truly or not, no retribution. And thanks to our good friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're syndicated to an additional 12 million households. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten. I welcome you to the show, and I remind you to go to the Pal Talk News Network website, which resides at reportergary.com, reportergary.com. Go early, go often, like voting in Chicago, to check for stories that you may or may not see, hear, or read in the mainstream media. I know there's been extremes in the weather around the world, and we talked a little bit about that last night or yesterday afternoon, depending on where you are. Yesterday morning, for those of you in New Zealand and Australia, where the future has already arrived. I know you're either out there dealing with floods or a drought, one extreme or the other in Australia, pretty expansive. But I know whether it is 2011 where you are or whether you are still watching the clock tick down to when the big ball drops in Times Square, you, of course, are very much interested in what the future holds. And I know a lot of us are concerned about the economy as well, and whether it will rebound, and whether we as a world population, world citizenry, will stand up to those in the corporate oligarchy who have been holding us down, and stand up to those governments who are keeping us under their thumb. Will we or won't we? Are we ready for this or not? In some countries, we have seen people marching on the streets and even rioting. In other countries, relatively passive responses. Joining us to tell us what 2011 has in store is our favorite forecaster of events, Gerald Celente. He is the publisher of the Trends Journal at www.trendsjournal.com. He's a longtime friend, many years back, dating back to my days at CNN Radio, where every year at this time of the year, Jerry was with me on the air, and here he is again on News Talk Online on the Pal Talk News Network. Gerald Celente, welcome to the show.
Hey, great being on with you again, Gary.
It's always great to hear your voice. I really enjoy talking to you. You have a top 10 trend of 2011 list at the Trends Journal at trendsjournal.com, and the very first item is the one that is nearest and dearest to my heart, to which I just alluded, about whether the people of all the nations will band together and say, you know, I'm fed up, I've had it, I ain't going to take it anymore.
It's starting to happen. Whether or not they're all going to band together, the groups to look at are the youth. Think about it. Unemployment rate between 18 and 26-year-olds in Spain, around 50%. And you start looking at that number, and it fluctuates, but close to it around a lot of Europe and a lot around the world. So look what we just saw recently. Students in Italy taking to the streets about tuition hikes and lack of opportunity, holding on to degrees of worthlessness. Look what went on in the UK just a little while ago. Off with their heads, they were screaming at the royal couple as tens of thousands of students who saw their tuition prices increase 3 times over what they were before, up to about $15,000 a year, also taking to the streets in protest. This is where the juice is. It's young people who have no future in front of them and understanding because they're intelligent enough to know the deal. The deal is this. It's called austerity measures. That means your minimum wage goes down. Your job opportunities become virtually non-existent. People with pensions and benefits, they're going to lose a lot of them along with services. They're going to be cut. Oh, but by the way, we're going to raise your taxes. We're going to raise your tuition. We're going to raise license fees and everything else we can raise to squeeze every dime out of you. And if you don't like it, we're going to beat you into oblivion. So they're taking to the streets. You know, as a Bronx guy originally, my saying is when people lose everything and they have nothing left to lose, they lose it. And they're starting to lose it because they have nothing left to lose. And think of it again, Gary. You have these 18 to 26-year-olds with testosterone raging through their bodies, not knowing your limits at that age, as many of us may recall. So the sky's the limit, and there is no box that you're going to stay in until you're heard or things change.
And of course, in France, the youngsters are already protesting the retirement age. So, they certainly are concerned about their future even at a young age in France. Our guest is Gerald Celente. He's the publisher of the Trends Journal, www.trendsjournal.com. We all know that there was an economic collapse. They call it a recession. Well, maybe if you're hurting a little bit, if your pay got cut or your hours got cut, it's a recession. But maybe if you lost your house and you lost your job, it was a depression. They propped up these banks, Jerry, the ones that were too big to fail. And now I just read that some of the very banks that received TARP funds here in the United States are in trouble and in danger of failing again.
It's true. And this whole thing, by the way, that began under Bush and accelerated under Obama, who made this baloney up that they're too big to fail? What a big lie that was. All it is giving their friends money. And we saw what happened with the Federal Reserve, as we learned from the Dodd-Frank bill, where they were forced this one time to tell us what they've been doing over the last year. They shoveled under the table $20 trillion worth of loans to banks all over the world, in England, in Ireland, in Spain, in the Netherlands, in South Korea, in Japan, in Canada, in France, in Germany. And they even gave the money here's a deal for you. I'll let you borrow billions of dollars at virtually no interest. How about that for an inside scoop? And they gave it to General Electric, Harley, McDonald's, Verizon. They gave it to hedge funds. So that's what's going on over here. So they're propping up their buddies, they're propping up the banks, and yes, they're going to continue to fail, along with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. The whole thing is one big Ponzi scam. And you know what? It's the biggest bank robbery, Gary, in world history. And the banks are doing the robbing.
I think you're probably right about that, and I don't think I've heard it articulated quite as specifically as that before, but when you put it in those terms, it does sound pretty shocking, because if they do a little bit at a time against us, sometimes we don't really realize what is happening, and it is against us, those of us in society, because the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, the middle class shrinks, and that leads to desperate times. And when there are desperate times, Gerald Celente, publisher of the Trends Journal, people turn to crime.
That's right. You figure it out. It doesn't take a lot to add it up to, does it? You know, you're out of your job. You have no future. What are you going to resort to? Look what's going on in major cities throughout the United States, for example. You're lucky to have a 50% graduation rate, and you don't no longer have those jobs anymore, those factory jobs where they used to pay a living wage. So what do you resort to? You resort to crime.